guys, I am Maria. If you have not stopped by the show before, I want to welcome you. I have an interview here with a fantastic therapist. She's in our area, Westlake Village, California. I am in Southern California right now. I did interview Lori Oberman last year. It was about social media addiction. I want to let you know right now that you can check the show notes on this video for the link to that particular video. You also will be able to find links to how to get in touch with Lori if you would like to reach out to her and have a conversation with her about any of the topics we're discussing here or anything that you might need help with. I also want to remind you that it is possible to stop by the podcast too, Strong Body, Strong Soul. I also want to let you know that comments, we will be looking at the comments here on this particular video. This is about a half-hour conversation. We are going to be talking about anxiety, stress, relationships. Hello, everybody. Hi, I am so excited that you are here. I have Lori Oberman here with me to have a conversation. I have interviewed Lori in the past. We talked about social media addiction. Now, in this quarantine, in this pandemic time period, I thought it would be really cool, really helpful to have her on the show right now. Hi, Lori, to talk about what's going on.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
School is out.
On the computers, and this is where we live now.
Yeah, it's so interesting because last time we spoke, we were talking about minimizing screen time. And here we are with the kids out of school. We're in a couple of weeks to this new way of life right now.
Very much so.
I'm thrilled to share the screen with you right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, why don't we start off with tell everybody who you are just in case they didn't see our last interview.
Hello, everyone. I hope this YouTube finds you well and your family okay. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. So just my background, a little bit of who I am. I used to work in the school, so elementary, middle, as well as high school. So dealing with their families, whether it was anxiety, depression, different parenting issues that come up within that population. And then I was lucky enough to start my own private practice here in Westlake. So I have a private practice currently in Westlake Village, but I also am part of a nonprofit organization that does grief groups. So I've been running grief groups for some time, spousal loss, and now in general, our whole population is seeing grief, but on a whole different scale. There's this new phenomenon called anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief is all the anxiety that we have about, well, what's to come? I know school is out and my children don't have consistency for a couple months, but what does the world look like after, quote unquote, we're no longer on quarantine? Right. So it's a lot of the unknown and fear of the unknown. And I'm seeing a lot of symptoms increasing just with sleep issues. And I'm sure we'll get into that more, but that's just a little bit of who I am and what I do in my current practice.
Lori, I want to get into a conversation from a parenting perspective, how we can help reduce stress on the parents out there. But since you mentioned the grief, can we start with that for just a moment?
Yes.
There's so many people out there. I've been talking to a lot of people as well that are so filled with fear. And I think, just like you're saying, anticipatory, I think it's so important that people realize we see the numbers of the virus and we know people survive it regardless of their age.
Yeah.
But I think immune systems are affected by fear as well.
Oh, absolutely. The stress level on various levels from, trying to be a stay-at-home teacher and an employee and a boss maybe, and whatever other hats that you wear, sister, husband, wife. So many hats that we are wearing currently. But it's the feeling of the unknown, and it's extremely overwhelming. I think some of us are shocked, possibly not. When you're dealing with grief in general, the first is we're in denial. This is not really happening. I don't really have to wear a mask. I don't really have to wear gloves if I go to the store. Come on. So I think that it was just people were in denial and people are in shock mode because I think as human beings, it's hard to comprehend this. We've never had anything of this sort in at least generations.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to even comprehend and wrap our heads around the whole idea of it. Mm-hmm. And then it's anger, like, oh my God, how did we get to this point? How come we're in this situation? So it's just, there's so many different things that can be affected. And what I've seen in my practice, I'm very fortunate enough to be still working. My clients are very open-minded and have been able to do, online therapy and luckily a confidential setting where there's HIPAA compliancy online. So, but I've seen a lot of increased sleep issues, not only with my own kids, to be honest with you, but my clients have been talking about, just so anxious, can't get to sleep, or they rise from their slumber and can't get back to sleep. Sleepwalking, at least for my daughter, she doesn't normally or hasn't ever sleepwalked. She's now having a lot of sleep disturbances. So this is what's very common when there's a huge disruption in anyone's life, in our whole world's life. We are going to be seeing symptoms that we've never seen before, and we really don't know how to deal with it home.
It's interesting you talk about the sleep, because I think a lot of people suffer prior to the pandemic with insomnia
Yes.
because of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Or obviously a symptom of depression is staying in bed
Yes.
and sleeping more. So you have both extremes.
Yeah.
What do you say to people in this situation? What is a good guideline of how to make sure, let's talk from a parenting standpoint, how
Yes.
do we make sure our teens are getting enough sleep? Let's focus on the
Okay.
teen population, because I have high schoolers, so I'm
Yes.
going to be, very self-centered and talk about my
I
own
appreciate
kids.
that. Well, I'll talk about a couple different age ranges. How
Okay.
about that? Just
Okay.
to, I don't know who's going to be watching this.
Perfect.
Adolescents, and then we'll move down the grid.
Okay.
Adolescents, clearly they're going to be on their screens. That's their only way to connect with their peers. And I think that's a really important thing that they have currently. That's their only way that they can communicate and stay connected, which is really important now more than ever, because the social isolation, you don't want that clearly for anyone. But I will say, putting the screens down is so important if you can, an hour or two before, whether it's having them do their silent reading at that point, if you have that control over them during adolescence. I don't know, everyone's parenting is very different. Or playing a game, if you don't mind, a late night Uno game or whatever, just to calm the brain. Or there's really good apps out there, Headspace, doing meditation, having guided imagery. I'm a big firm believer with all my clients in guided imagery. You can check a lot of them out on YouTube. There's some really great free resources that are available that will really just put your mind and body at ease to make you feel like you're in a more comfortable setting before you try and even get to that slumber point. And I think whatever routine you had before in your sleep patterns, whether it was for a young person or adolescents, like washing their face, making sure their skincare is up to date and all that, or reading a book for younger children and making sure that we put Teddy next to them with their pillow and talk about whatever your ritual was before. I would encourage you to keep those rituals up no matter how exhausted you are, because I'm exhausted. I'm sure you are too, taking care of little ones. But it's really important to keep those rituals going at night.
Right. And having all the energy of all of the family members in the house 24/7 is just such a crazy thing.
Yes.
How can we as parents kind of guard our own sanity too, depending on the age range? I have friends who have 2-year-old twins running around the house like crazy, worried. And then I have older kids that I'm trying to figure out our boundaries, because let's face it, as teens, they're kind of in heaven. If they're in their room for 10 hours in a row on their device, they're kind of okay with that.
Yes.
But I'm not.
I'm sure. Well, I think, if you guys normally had dinner times as families. We personally didn't, because my husband works and he does a lot of commuting living in the LA area. So we have been having these family dinners that we've never had before. So we're really, trying to nourish what is exciting and different about this opportunity, but also being respectful of this situation. So I think if, one meal at least together, whether it's breakfast, whether it's lunch, whether it's dinner, everyone has different work issues that are going on. But keeping that consistent, and devices are away during those 20 to 30 minutes that you actually are at the table eating together. You want to say something?
unless you're
Yeah.
on a Zoom call having a meal with
Oh,
someone
okay.
in
Good
other
point. Good
state.
point.
It's so interesting how
Yes.
last time we were talking about that, putting the devices away during meals, of course,
Yeah.
but my mom's by herself, a 2 hour
Oh,
drive away, and we haven't had a meal like that together yet.
oh, I encourage that. I mean, good
Yes.
point. I'm glad that you brought that up because we have done Zooms with our friends.
Have you?
Um, I mean, it's been really, really neat. I mean, it's kind of funny because you're like, what are they doing? What are they eating? You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it's very interesting, right?
yeah.
But it's also really cool. Like, oh, what are you eating? What's that dish? Oh, we're having this. You know, what did you do this week? So it's
Uh-huh.
a really neat way to connect.
Right.
I know a lot of people have been like having wine and cheese nights with their friends, which is all really wonderful, and I love the creativity that's coming from
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But I think when it's your nuclear family and you need consistency,
Right.
having that one meal, whether it is breakfast, whether it is dinner, you know, whatever works for you, but at least setting that 20 minutes aside so you can connect and be like, how was it? I even did this with my kids. I think it was last weekend because we hadn't sat down as a family and talked about like, what does this mean to you? How is it not being at school? And
Uh-huh.
because I have younger kids, I had them draw it out. What does this pandemic mean to you? And it was just so amazing to see what my daughter drew. She's very artistic, but just a sad little girl with her, you know, her eyes shut and crying. And it was just for an 8-year-old to express herself in that way.
Yeah.
I think using art therapy, even though you might not be art therapist out there, but asking them to draw out what this means to you as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 14-year-old, it would be very interesting to see what comes out. And I would suggest the parents sit down and draw it too. You
I
don't have to
agree.
be an artist. You could, mine was a bunch of lines because I was so angry about it. That's where I was in my grief, right? I
Yeah.
just scribbled everywhere because I was like, I'm so frustrated by this. But
So, so far, like your pointers would be keeping as good a schedule and
yeah,
staying in your routine as much as you can, as far as helping with the sleep
yes,
problems, and with the family time, putting our devices away unless we're on a Zoom call with
yes,
other
yes,
family members.
yes.
I was thinking about this whole idea of being anxious
Mhm.
when about time in the house.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to guard our time in different ways. The kids are doing their homework nonstop. My mom, if I send her a Zoom link to come onto a call with me, if
Mhm.
she doesn't know it's coming and she sees it 3 hours later, it's causing her anxiety.
Right.
So I'd love to hear your perspective on how to guard our time individually from each other and respect, but also as it relates to relationships, to
A
your
great
marriage.
question. Yes,
Let's
great
talk
question.
about marriage a little bit because that is hard. You can't really schedule a date night right now, or can
Well,
you?
you can. I've come up with ideas. This is very
Okay.
important. So I want to share this information because I think it is really important and it affects every married couple out there, right?
Yeah.
So my husband and I were actually talking about this last night, and he's like, "I'd really like a date night. How are we going to do that?" I was like, "Okay, so I don't want to have to cook. You know, I'm comfortable with takeout. I know everyone has their own comfort level with that, but we have planned to put a movie at least 2 hours on for our children, and he's going to go run out and get it. I'm going to get them all settled, you know, in the family room."
Uh-huh.
And then when they're watching their show, we're going to have a meal brought to us, you know, pretending that we're at a restaurant. And if it needs to be in a different room, you know, move further away and maybe make a little picnic area in one room away from the TV so you don't hear the movie that is playing for your kids. But
Yeah.
I think you can be very creative. Even I just recently had a birthday.
Oh,
You can be creative even with birthdays, even for little ones that have a birthday party that was canceled, let's say.
uh-huh.
Um, making a teddy bear scavenger hunt or having each person, you do a drive-by and each person will hold up a sign that their friends have made for them. You can coordinate that via email. But I think there's special things that you can do not only with your partner, but I think with your kids that are also having really momentous occasions during this really uncertain time.
Mm.
Make it special because I think what they're going to remember most is what you did with this instead of how much anxiety you had over this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I know you had a question about timing. I would say, if you are that person that really needs to work out, or if you really enjoy your book at night, have a family meeting about that, saying,
Ah,
I really need this half hour to read my book before I go to bed, or I really need an hour of working out. How can we manage it together? And so I know my husband and I take turns. I mostly midday after he's had some of his conference calls. And then I'm like, okay, you got the kids,
Yeah.
while I do it, in the daytime. So it's just about managing time, and being creative is key at this point. And it's not going to be perfect, and it's going to be okay to remember that. Just, it will
Wow.
be okay.
And communication, like I'm sure
Yes.
that's the bottom line with most of your clients. I'm sure any kind of communicating what your real needs are and not
Yeah,
pretending.
and what's frustrating you, like that you really can't get your workout in, or that you really want to just read the ending of the book, or if you really want that magazine that just came in the mail, like tell them, because people are
Yeah.
not mind readers. And if you're just really open and honest, and if it's an uncomfortable situation, then write a letter to your partner or to
Mhm.
your husband or to your wife and go, you know what, this is hard for me. I can't talk about it, but this is how I'm really feeling. So, we don't want to, yeah, we don't want an surgeons in divorce. I mean, we
Right.
want everyone to become stronger in this situation, but I understand that some things are very challenging to talk about. So write about it. Encourage your children to write about it if you need to. Write a letter to your children, even if you're having difficulties, like any concerns, and then say, please write back. Tell me your thoughts. Because sometimes if you're in tight quarters, maybe having that conversation might not be a good time at that point.
Interesting.
Timing's everything, right, in
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
if you see that they've been on a really stressful lesson, or on a stressful call at work, you don't know what just happened to them, but I know what is important to you is really urgent and you want to get it off your chest, and that might make a big explosion happen.
Yeah.
Clearly, we want to prevent that, and writing it down so you know that you can have your feelings met is really important as well.
Interesting. Thank you for that because
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously, we're all squished in the same house. And I can imagine for a lot of families out there, if they were having any problems in their relationships or such before this all happened,
Yes.
the problems don't just automatically go away, but
No.
it does give you a different sense of what your priorities are.
Yes.
And
It really.
writing may be a good way to communicate.
Yeah, just
Ah,
even how this pandemic was for you, keeping a journal,
mhm,
of your own thoughts, like,
mhm.
you know, meet your shadow,
Yeah,
meet the qualities that you never had time to even meet.
right,
So
right.
if you just change that perspective and you look through that lens differently, it can really be empowering. I know I'm saying this and even I get frustrated and I go, I'm at my wit's end, because I'm real and I don't think everything is wonderful or rose colored glasses, but I
Yeah.
do think that we are very empowered, but what we do have control over.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
I am going to encourage everybody at the end to contact you if they would like to get in touch. But I also want to encourage people to leave comments below on this video
Yes.
because Lori is so great. And I loved our first interview that we did last year. And
Yeah.
now that we're in this situation, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, maybe in a week or two, we can come
Yeah.
and do another conversation like this. And
Yes,
we
of
can
course.
actually take a look at the comments and see what people would
Yeah.
like to hear from you.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people have reached out with young children on ideas how to keep it sane for young children, because that's a whole nother level, like
Yeah.
preschool to kindergarten age. I know that's been very challenging for young parents as well.
What about school? What about the education system? Do you have any pointers for parents or families out there trying to help their kids with this long distance learning situation?
Good question. Now, everyone is in a different situation because not everyone has accessibility, or Wi-Fi can get cut off. Or, I mean,
Mhm.
there's so many different challenges. But I think also being very compassionate about the situation, that if you're frustrated because you don't understand the assignment, imagine how your son or daughter is feeling. I
Uh-huh.
mean, that's even compounded. So just really having compassion, going, you know what, this does really suck. Trying just to align with them, going, this is awful.
Mhm.
And let me just email your teacher, or do you want to email your teacher? Let's do it together. Write her a letter or him a letter,
Mhm.
and just really joining and going, you know what, it's okay that you don't know, and giving them a little bit of space to go, you don't have to be perfect right now. There's
Mhm.
no such thing as perfect anyways, but let's be realistic in this situation and
Right.
kind of lower some of the expectations, because I know some perfectionists out there, whew, they are thrown for a loop. Perfectionists are just like, it's just way too overwhelming to try and be perfect in a situation that they've never experienced before.
Right.
So
None of
just,
us have experienced this before. And
yeah,
I want to jump ahead just for my own purposes too, is the high school kids, juniors and seniors, they're getting ready to apply to colleges.
I know.
So even if you're not a perfectionist type parent,
Yes,
you're thinking, what about the SATs? They've all
yes,
been canceled. It's
I know.
crazy.
And
And
clearly, yeah, I'm sorry, go on.
yeah, it's just like it's a lot of anxiety for parents thinking, worried about that situation to
Yeah,
have
and what I
to
will
like
say is
spiral.
clearly, yeah, everyone's in that situation. No
Yeah,
one can take the SATs. So, I
right.
mean, I know that they're talking about like,
But I
you
need to
know,
hear it from you.
yeah, yeah, no,
Help
I'm
you.
glad you're
Help
asking
to hear
because
you
it's
say it.
no, because everyone is in that same boat. If no one can take the SATs, there might not be SATs this year. I mean, it's just the reality of where we are in our world. And I think that parents, especially, take a deep breath and go, okay, if my kid isn't able to take the SAT, no one else is taking it either.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're going to be left behind. That means that they're going to clearly change the system,
Yeah.
which probably needed to be changed anyways, but that's a whole nother Zoom that
Yeah. Yeah.
that we don't need to address right now. But I
Right.
mean, clearly it's going to have to be revamped. The admissions boards are going to have to be more flexible. And I would just say, take a deep breath. Because
Right.
look at this from an outside perspective. I know you're concerned about your child and you're like, oh, what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah.
Take a deep breath and go, you know what? No one's going to be doing this. It's going to be different.
Right. Um, Let me, before I let you go, I so appreciate this conversation. Let me ask you just one thing about safety
Mhm.
precautions
Yes.
in this situation that we're in right now. And
Mhm.
I know you're not a doctor about
Yeah.
what kind of mask to wear or anything like that, but the rule in our area now is that we should wear masks when
Mhm.
we're outside.
Yes.
Yesterday, I went for a bike ride and I take my dog for a bike ride because he needs to run.
Uh-huh.
So I wore a mask and it was really uncomfortable and I was sweating because it's just
Yes.
awkward and everything. But
We're
as
not
I was
good.
riding my bike, no one else was wearing masks.
Mhm.
So I would love to get your insights on that, how important it is not to compare ourselves to other people.
Yes.
Kind of
Very,
what do you
very good
do
point.
with that? Because even that, I don't want to judge other people. I don't want
Mhm.
to go and tell on them, but I
Yeah.
also kind of feel a little foolish for wearing a mask.
Yes.
There's
It's so new.
inner battle of what to do.
Yes, because it's such a new idea. It's a new concept. I mean,
Yeah.
in other countries, people, in the other countries, they do wear masks, and it's pretty familiar to them. But
Mhm.
because they're used to it, we are not used to this way of living. And remember, it's a lifestyle change. Any
Mhm.
lifestyle change that anyone has ever had to go through, whether it's weight loss, weight gain, whatever your goal was, it's horrible. Change is so hard to do. And
Yeah.
I think that when you're talking about face masks, I think everyone has to make their individual decision. I think you have to look at your own health risks. Do
Mhm.
you have a pre-existing condition like asthma or diabetes or all those,
Right.
the list of things? You have to
Right.
take care of yourself first and foremost, and then your family.
Well,
Always like when you're on a flight, put your mask first and then your children. Take
right.
care of yourself and then your children, because you have to do what's comfortable for you.
Right.
And you can clearly judge a lot because there's a lot of judging going on and a lot of people
Mhm.
have a lot of opinions, but you know what? Opinions don't really help. I think you have to make your own choices
Right.
that are best for you and your family.
Right.
Um,
And I will say it's so interesting because the masks, we're wearing the mask not to protect ourselves from getting the virus.
mhm.
It's so that we don't give it to other people
Yes,
because we may have it and not realize it. That's the whole problem,
yes, the
is that we
asymptomatic.
don't know.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting because I'm thinking if I have the mask on, automatically people who see someone with a mask are going to assume that that person is sick. And that's a good thing because then they'll stay away from me. So it's almost like shifting our perception of what the mask means too.
It really is a difference in perception. You're right. And I think that you have to do what's comfortable. You saw it next door and all these things. It's like, oh, I'm doing my best, to wear my gloves and wear my mask. And why do I see people walking by my house? And, the rhetoric online, it's amazing. Like, then you need to move 6 feet away. Then, like, don't tell other people what to do. I mean, people
Move
have
away.
a lot of opinions. People have a lot of opinions.
Yes, yes,
Well,
yes.
and people are very heated because, granted, this is close quarters. We all have cabin fever. We are all experiencing a loss,
Right.
and we're all going to react differently.
Yeah.
And, some have better coping skills than others.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've ever wanted to work up coping skills, look them up online, start watercolors. If you've ever wanted to start painting, start drawing, start yoga practice, whatever you wanted, gardening, whatever you wanted to do, you have this free time.
Right.
I suggest you be as creative as you can to get through it, because you know what? You can truly be concerned about all of people's opinions, but you have to do what you're comfortable with. That's first and foremost.
Right. Well, Lori, thank you so very much. Let's just talk. I'd love to hear where people can find you, and tell us a little bit about the rules about therapy that are going on right now. How confident can people be that it is private when they are working on a screen like this with a therapist?
Yes,
How does
that's
that
a
work?
good question. So I've never been faced with, you have to do every session online. So I took a quick CEU class, continuing education class, online for myself, because I knew I wanted to continue with my clients. My clients wanted to continue with me. So luckily I found some stuff online and I got a certificate and I know everything that we need to do. And there's HIPAA compliant websites out there. I'm using them specifically, and there's encryption, so there's passwords involved, and it's been really great. I've been able to set up a waiting room, and so they wait in the waiting room, and I have to admit whoever comes into the session. So I personally have not had a problem with any breach in confidentiality. As far as I'm concerned, I know that has been an issue for some right now in the news, but I think there's definitely things that you can do to prevent any of that, because
Which
with anything there's going to be
Which
what
platform are you using? Which platform are you using?
I use DoxyMe,
Okay.
which is a HIPAA compliant, and I also use Zoom. I know Zoom has had a lot of, different PR right now, but I use a waiting room. I use passwords for all my links. So I have not had an issue thus far. And as I said, I run bereavement groups. So I have like 12 people that have been in one room. I haven't had an individual that has come in uninvited. So I have a lot of people in these rooms that are Zooming together, and I've been fortunate enough to not have an issue.
Very good. Very good.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this, just out of curiosity, when you do a Zoom call, when you're in a real therapy session with somebody in your office, they go home, they do their homework, and they see you the next week or what have you. But on Zoom, you're able to record it. Do patients request? Are you able to record it so that they can hear the session again later?
That's a good question. I don't allow them to record.
Okay.
That's a breach of confidentiality, because if it goes into the wrong hands, that's not safe, nor do I record. I'm not allowed to. That's
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, good question, but no, because it's all about confidentiality. And I've had sessions with people in their bathroom. I've had sessions with their people in their closet, because I'm like, okay, before we begin, can people hear you? I want to make sure that they feel confident that it's confidentiality. If you're really going to talk and be open and honest, where's the space? So I've had bathrooms and showers behind people, and their whole, everything's hanging up in there. And I'm like, that's great, because they feel safe and they can finally get out all of what they need to get out.
Hiding
and I don't,
kids.
There's no judgment here. Like, hey, we're all in this pandemic together. We all know we're stuck at home. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because I was watching Glennon Doyle. I don't know if you know her. She's an author, but she was talking about nobody's okay right now.
No. And if they say they're okay, they're lying. Yes, this is crazy making. No one has ever had to go through this.
Yeah.
And it is, it's extremely overwhelming, but I always try and practice this with my clients. How to create meaning in a very meaningless situation. Why do we have to go through all this? And whether it's our earth trying to help itself, whether the cars are no longer on the roads and it can breathe and heal for a little bit. We don't know why this is happening. And I always feel like if you learn from something that was very disturbing to you, then hopefully you can grow and become stronger from this. And hopefully as a community, as a society, we can be stronger from this really incredible thing that we're all going through right now. Please, make the comments, visit, my website is lorioberman.com. It's LORIOBERMAN, Lori Oberman, my full name, .com. So check out my website. I'm happy to help anyone. I know there's a lot going on for everyone. So please reach out to the people that can truly help you.
Thank you so much.